Today, we're going to look at Martin Chemintz. Martin Chemintz is known as the second Martin in Lutheran history. Martin Chemintz is the person that a lot of historians and others inside the Lutheran Church say, if he didn't come along, the Lutheran Church would have not been established. Martin Chemintz was a gifted student, knew Latin, studied quite well, actually went to school to become an astronomer. Went to the University of Brandenburg, University of Berlin, had different places he studied at. He went and became a tutor for a duke, and at this time, the thought of him being a pastor or a theologian had not really been pressed. It was something that he did think about, but didn't do. After being a tutor for a while, he just went and was sent to Wittenberg University in the 1550s. Meaning Martin Luther was passed away and only Melanchthon was there as a professor. Melanchthon had written his book called the Loci Communes. This is the doctrine book that was being used to teach Lutheran doctrine at the Lutheran Seminary in Wittenberg. Chemintz and Melanchthon became friends. It probably established more along the line of Latin and Greek because Martin Chemintz was a good student. After his years in Wittenberg, he went and was a pastor in a small town in Germany. And during this time, this is like 1560 roughly, and later, he had been at Wittenberg when all of the controversies, at least some of them, had started. Started with the Leipzig Interim and so forth. Well, Chemintz, being the student of Melanchthon and studying under him, and he started to be the one that people would write to and say, okay, what do you think on these opinions? Chemintz would slowly start saying, okay, we're going to have to get together and talk about and write on each of the different topics. And he wanted everybody to come together and the people on both sides to come together to discuss what the actual issue was. He didn't want vagueness. He wanted everybody to be concise. And so Chemintz got together those people who had raised differences. And there's a list of people, and there's too many of them to name. And so he brought them together and started to bring together what we know as the formula of concord. This formula was on the 11 issues that are used in it, where Melanchthon would make sure that he would have the topic and then hand it to Chemintz, and Chemintz would go about using it. That's what Luther here was having Chemintz do for the Lutheran Church. And Chemintz would read Luther, then read Melanchthon, and then bring it together and say, okay, this is where we stand. And that is where the Book of Concord came about, because Chemintz brought it together. Chemintz also is the one that, if you read it, he says, okay, what does the Lutheran Church actually believe? He takes the first seven ecumenical councils, the three creeds of the Western Church. He also then takes the Augsburg Confession, unaltered, the Apology to the Augsburg Confession, the large and small catechisms of Martin Luther, the small colored articles on primacy of the Pope, and then the Formula of Concord. He puts that in a book and says, this is what the Lutheran Church believes. In history, most of us don't take that first thing that Chemintz put down. How many people actually believe or even know what the first seven ecumenical councils are? But it's the last part, the coming together of the Lutheran Church, that Chemintz did. The Formula of Concord and the Solid Declaration. Now, there are other books that Chemintz is famous for. Some are smaller, others are quite lengthy. Because of when Chemintz was at the University of Wittenberg, one of his longer works is called The Examination of the Council of Trent. I know in English it's 4 volumes, and each one is 12 to 1,500 pages, where Chemintz goes through each part of the Council of Trent and says, okay, this is where we stand. The other book that Chemintz is known for is The Two Natures of Christ. Because of the issues in the Formula of Concord and the Solid Declaration, Chemintz wanted people to understand and know all possibilities with the two natures of Christ. And yes, Chemintz had written other books at the time. There's a couple that we still use today. He did rewrite Melanchthon's Loci Communes and use that as the book to teach Lutheran doctrine to pastors in Germany from 1580 through about 1800. That was the standard book that was used. This has been translated into English by J.A.O. Preuss III. In fact, he's the one that, if you want to read more about the life of Chemintz, it's in this called the Second Martin, written by J.A.O. Preuss. He is the one that did a lot of the scholarly work on the life of Chemintz and translated lots of that into English. How long was that?